Thank you. I was intrigued at one of your comments about how employers, industry businesses, get employees when they're looking for employees through referrals or by going to their community colleges, their schools, and not necessarily to the Department of Labor. Would there be a benefit? I mean, we create these silos. These silos are created by us as a state. We have different departments, and each department then guards its prerogative to the exclusion of everyone else. So we oftentimes don't have the kinds of synergies where there should be overlap, where they're working together. Is there any benefit to having a Department of Labor offices tied into our community colleges as part of these programs, so that as the programs are developed, at the same time, Department of Labor is right there, and there is a natural tie-in in terms of advising people who are looking for jobs to tie back into these certificate programs to learn skills, and then, again, out to the local community to find a job in that industry. I mean, it just seems like that almost makes sense.
It's an interesting way to look at it. I think the first thing to do is to break down those silos that are self-imposed that you talked about. So even here on Long Island, we have 3 different workforce development, Department of Labor areas. And if you're an employer, and we have a couple of those today, you don't care if you're in Suffolk or Nassau or Oyster Bay or Hempstead or Long Beach. You just want a qualified candidate. And the experience of the job seeker going to be trained or seeking work, or the employer trying to work with those agencies shouldn't be different in any one of those spaces. So I think the very first thing and most important would be to align all of our Department of Labor activities in Long Island and see this as one island. So that a job seeker and an employer might have a facility in Nassau and in Suffolk, and they shouldn't have a different experience trying to get on-the-job training, getting their jobs in the bank, and it would also enable them to be more active as an industry advisors if there was a one-stop process for that. Hopefully that answers your question.
So the ability to work together and not to allow jurisdictional boundaries as well as political boundaries to stand in the way.
Yeah, because the average citizen of their corporation isn't paying attention to that. They want to get their work done. They want to get it quickly. We want to get a candidate quickly. And people who are looking for jobs want to get to work quickly.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. As far as Suffolk County, Nassau County, what should we be looking at, from a policy standpoint? Obviously, there are larger state issues, but some of those obviously overlap here as well. What would you suggest should be the priority in terms of setting policy to allow for the best opportunity, again, to have a person who's looking for a job connect to that job? What should we be looking at?
I think the things that were discussed earlier, that number one, that the funding streams are consistent, that they're not competing for the funding streams, so that these programs, they can plan from every year, people can focus on improving the program and making it relevant, not spending half the year applying for the funding. And I do agree 100% with what John Lombardo said. It has to be based on performance, because that's what our employers look for, and it has to be based on that people are being placed. And I didn't mention that oftentimes schools are looking at graduation and enrollment as success. It has to be tied to job placement and retention. So not that they just got a job and then they left the job 6 months later. If education was held accountable for making sure people stayed in jobs, then their curriculum would be more relevant. So number one, that the funding streams for training, which has to be forever and sustainable, are not something that people are having to fight for. And secondly, that it's a united and strategic vision that everyone's working on, and it's the same process no matter where you are.
So changing the metric from simple graduation to putting the onus on the institution to develop degrees that are going to lead to jobs.
And on industry, Senator, because some of the software upgrades that we were talking about at the community college, the most state-of-the-art equipment that's in Alkin's, facility or some of the other facilities, for one of the softwares costs $100,000 a station. So if we want our people to come out of college community college with that current knowledge, industry has to say, we have all of our manufacturers using that software, hey, you need to bring down the price of that and make sure all of our colleges have the state-of-the-art equipment. So I think, industry aligning under one strategic vision, Department of Labor, one strategic vision, and our schools.
I understand. And on that point, I've seen examples in other regions of the state where there are those relationships between the community college and industry such that a part of the course is actually taught at the employer, at the manufacturer, using their equipment, understanding that it's going to be impossible or impractical for the community college to make the kind of investment in the equipment that's necessary to be able to teach students those specific skills. But the relationship exists with the industry such that the community college can reach out and actually use that particular factory or manufacturer as an extension of their classroom.
Exactly.
And those opportunities sometimes aren't necessarily developed. Senator Croce.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you very much for your appearance here today and participation in task force. Very enlightening to read your testimony. Looking at some of it, I'm curious if you could elaborate on parts of it. One is you mentioned removing barriers for employers to provide a real work experience. And I think you mentioned cost of time, material, as well as concerns about liability. Are there other things that are inhibiting this kind of real work experience from being proliferated, for lack of a better term?
We talked, thank you for the question, and for reading the testimony. The apprenticeship is one of the strongest tools that we have. Building trades model, phenomenal, right? Full-time careers. So there are a couple of manufacturers on the island, though very few, that have gone through the process of apprenticeship. Paperwork is cumbersome, reporting is cumbersome. Most of, if I didn't say this before, most of the businesses that stay here and employ unsustainable jobs are small businesses without a lot of resources, extra people. So they spend a lot of time on paperwork, and it's hard for them to navigate that apprenticeship creation process. So that is another really key thing we can do, the more apprenticeships we can develop in industry. And the second part was, to your point, in the areas where it's often used as an employer has their facility as an extension of the classroom, they're less concerned about liability, and they trust that they can do that safely and that they're supported in having people on site and bringing students from the college to an actual live manufacturing facility on equipment, and then it's not going to be a problem for them.
When you're talking about the cost of time, you're talking about the investment into the process of the training.
Yes. So so WDI Upstate has worked in partnership with the Finger Lakes Community College and several others. And what we do with our grant funding in those instances is we give grants to the employers who participate in designing those programs and allow students on site to use their facilities as part of the training extension of the classroom, and reimburse them for their time. They're taking a manager off their line, they're using their own materials, and to make them more comfortable about that possible cost of liability. And those models that we've had, 95% placement in jobs, and they stay.
So from a government perspective, getting the red tape out of the way in some of these areas is a way to expedite
Yes,
the process.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, if I'm a manufacturer here on Long Island and I decide that I want to set up a program where I teach others to do the skilled work that my workers are doing now, I can't do that without getting approval to be able to do that, to set up that apprenticeship program?
Many of them and most of them have had to have their own informal training because they can't find the workers they need to have. But a formal training program, as evidenced, like a formal apprenticeship program, which is paid, especially for low income, but even anyone today, the cost of education is high. A paid internship or a paid apprenticeship allows people to come to work and learn. So yeah, there's paperwork, and have a registered Department of Labor apprenticeship program, and it's necessary to regulate these things, right, to some degree, so that it's safe and it's consistent, and that the criteria and the metrics are reasonable. But to have a registered program, you have to go through. There are companies like Alkin that you'll hear today that have scholarships that work in partnership with colleges, and they give scholarships to help pay for students to go through the programs and do their own form of training. But it's a heavy lift for a small company.
I understand. I would just think that no one is more interested in making sure that the apprenticeship program develops properly skilled workers than the industry or the company that is actually providing the apprenticeship program. So it seems rather counterintuitive that the state would stick its finger in the process to complicate it when, if we just stood back and allowed those who are most interested in getting the best result to do so, would probably be the best answer. So that's interesting. I hadn't quite gotten that. I do now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Michael Johnston, who's a principal at Concord Hotel. We're taking Mr. Johnston out of order. I know that you have another commitment, and we're doing so. And I thank you for being here. But Mr. Johnston will be testifying alongside Dr. Gail Lamberta from St. Joseph's College. So both of you, thank you very much.
I thought I was out of order for a second. You said out of order.
No. You are absolutely in order, but our order has been rearranged.
Matter of fact, I was a little nervous when I got the invitation to testify, because I was actually doing like my kids do, and I was on my phone texting, and I was watching the History Channel, and it was on testimony in the McCarthy era, on testimony. So I said, I'm not sure I want to testify, But anyhow, I appreciate being having the opportunity to come today. Thank you very much. We appreciate that you folks are looking into workforce development. We think it's very, very important. I'd like just to read a few things and just give you a quick overview of our industry from on Long Island. The hospitality and tourism is approximately a $5.6 billion industry on Long Island, with approximately 9.1 million overnight visitors, producing roughly $301 million in local taxes and over $294 million in state taxes. We probably get a lot more taxes if we had some of the illegal rentals taken care of under Airbnb. We have approximately 364 hotels on Long Island, totaling in excess of 18,000 rooms. There are over 75,000, is the main point, over 75,000 people employed in the hospitality industry on Long Island, which includes entry-level positions to managerial and executive positions. As our industry continues to grow, the opportunities for employment increase at all levels, especially if and when we have the mixed-use developments come to fruition on Long Island. We think there's a tremendous amount of opportunities there. Retail, obviously, which is not under hospitality, but the hotels, which are part of the mixed-use development, especially in Huntington Station and Hempstead. We have 2 hotels that will be opening up, which will approximately employ about 125 people this year, as well as numerous facilities are renovating to meet the demands of our savvy guests and our newfound guests, quote unquote, the millennials, who are unfortunately leaving Long Island, looking for jobs. As we know, that the number one export on Long Island, if you don't know, is 19 to 34-year-olds leaving Long Island. I think we either were number 1 or number 2 in the nation. I think North Jersey has more young people leaving than we do, but we're like Avis now. They're still trying to become number 1, which is not a good thing, leaving. But the millennials will spend within 3 years. They will spend more money in restaurants and hotels than the baby boomers. So we like to keep those folks here in the jobs. We think there's, if not dozens, there's hundreds of openings on a consistent basis at all levels. I would like to jump real quick because Rosalie was talking about, and I think you asked the question, Senator, of labor departments or employment agencies. There are dozens and really hundreds of jobs on a daily basis open in our industry on Long Island. And those jobs are basically either, referrals, looking for referrals, social media, i.e., H Careers, which is a big one, Craigslist. I could tell you that in the last 10 to 15 years, I can't remember someone saying, I better let's see if I can call the Labor Department and see if I can get some help. And so that was very interesting that you brought that up. But it is social media. An example is H Careers, Craigslist, and then tremendous amount of referrals on Long Island. So the Department of Labor is not used as much as probably should be. Shame on the industry not going over there and maybe educating them as well. So I think there can be some synergy there where we have some experts, field experts, quote unquote, going over to the Department of Labor and explaining and really educating them on what is needed. So the culture of the profession, our profession is a service-oriented, and guest satisfaction is at the forefront. The perception of many is that people are employed because they need a job, and there is not any career progression. It is more than just a job, and it is one that requires training as well as education. And the industry offers a wide variety of career paths and opportunities for advancement. A tremendous amount of steps in that ladder, so there is a very viable career path. And we want to educate the public. There are numerous and well-paid opportunities in the industry, not just jobs. As you know, in Europe and Asia, when I say even, the servers, it is a profession. It is not a job. And it takes, you go through an internship program, you have an apprentice program to even become a server in most of your European countries. And unfortunately, that's why we have probably 300, if not more, people from outside the country that we employ every single summer because we can't get enough people to do the job, especially out east, eastern Long Island. Matter of fact, I had the opportunity to train about 200 Eastern Europeans in our culture and our service excellence courses to prepare them to take care of their summer guests. Gurney's, Montauk Yacht Club, they hire hundreds of people during the summer season because we can't get the labor that we need or train them to get them to those jobs. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunities there. What is working? The industry and colleges are working together to educate and get people ready to be part of this exciting industry by forging relationships, putting together real-life experiences with internships programs. St. Joe's College has done a tremendous job working with us in the last 2 years since they put their program together. We believe that the leaders in the industry across Long Island promote quality and work together for the good of the region. The Long Island Hotel and Lodging Association and its members have and are collaborating with one another in Long Island colleges, which we think has become a real plus to make sure that we are working with the educators on the curriculum, real-life experiences, different scenarios that aren't being taught in the colleges now that we want to see, having more quote-unquote field experts getting with the colleges and either teaching, training, lecturing, to bring it to the forefront that, hey, this is what we need. We actually had about a month ago a hotel association meeting, and the panels was the 4 colleges on Long Island: NYIT, Suffolk Community College, Nassau Community College, and St. Joe's, to discuss these things that we're talking about today: workforce development. What do we need to get more people into the profession? How do we get the people who need jobs and want jobs into our profession? And we think that's what's needed and what's being done. What needs improvement? We need to think that, and I think somebody brought up about below the college level, to drill down below the college level to promote, educate students as well as the teachers and entry-level applicants so they have a working knowledge of what the industry can do for them. We need to set up training with case studies, real-world scenarios to assist those who want to be part of this profession. These training programs will include service excellence, world-class service excellence, computer-based training, and language skills. The technology's role now is to move forward in technology. We need to prepare people on what they need to know to be successful, how to handle everything, requests, not just interview, and Rosalie said, I worked for Marriott for many years, Marriott International, in all different levels. And now it takes probably 3 times before you'll talk to a person one-on-one. You have to go, you're going through a computer, you're going through the applications. Well, that's the same thing now. We want to teach these all our entry-level positions to learn, have more or better computer skills. I say we went from the trend in restaurants was farm to table. It is now iPad to kitchen. If you go into restaurants, if you've ever been to some of your airport terminals, you order everything through the iPad. So we have to change the way we teach our entry-level positions on adapting to the new ways of service excellence. The kiosks that will be in your hotels, your apps that will be used. The front desk person will no longer be a front desk person. They'll be a lobby lizard and lobby ambassador for the hotel. So there's things that we have to adapt on these changing roles in the technology level. Education's involvement. I think the colleges, the 4 I just mentioned, which are here, we're forging more and more relations to get a better handle on what is needed from the schools and vice versa to prepare our future leaders in this ever-changing industry. I think we're fortunate to have all these colleges to get an industry to get a better handle on what is needed, to have actually have the industry leaders educate the educators on what is needed. These institutes of higher learning, they're offering these degrees, hospitality and tourism industry, and offer a wide variety of degrees that will better prepare our students for the workplace. The College of St. Joe's, the Institute of Hospitality, and the Hotel Associations, we offer free networking breakfasts now, seminars for our professionals, students, and the community at large. These symposiums address current issues challenging facing our industry and have helped navigate the future direction of the overall profession. We are averaging approximately about 100 to 125 attendees at these symposiums that we've had for the last, year and a half now, Doctor?
2 years.
I think that's very important that with the relationship with colleges and businesses are not the educators. We need to train people, but we are not the educators. We need the colleges and the schools to educate our students to better prepare them for professions. So I just want to thank you for allowing me to talk today, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you, Senator.
For being here.
Thank you very much. And I'm with St. Joseph's College, and we are a liberal arts, rooted in the liberal arts. And to your point that you had made several times, we've had to change our thinking. We've had to change how we deal with the 21st century workforce. And our goal is to develop people, educate them, and prepare them for a career, but one that more than likely for our graduates will change. Probably about 5 times on the average. So the liberal arts component, what we do is we enable them to learn about some of those soft skills, certainly critical thinking skills, and prepare them to navigate a new type of a workforce and future and career path. As well, we also focus on those particular skills in each of our majors, and I know we're talking about hospitality and tourism management. Which is, we've only rolled out the major 2 years ago, and just as a point in fact, of course, our first thing was to create the articulation with Suffolk Community College. And the transfers that had come in 2 years ago have graduated, all are working in the field on Long Island, which is a very, very refreshing thing for us. But a couple of things that I just want to point out. We also realize that, we have a lot of issues here on Long Island. Many of these job issues start to tie into livability. It's being able to work and have a job. It's being able to afford a home. And I think we all know very much all of those little different aspects. We developed a Center for Community Solutions. We have several institutes. One is the Institute for Hospitality and Tourism Management. And our goal here is to provide some cutting-edge workshops, educational workshops, awareness, and networking. And what this has done is it starts to develop partnerships. We met Rosalie, and we partnered with Rosalie through Workforce Development Institute. I think I know pretty much almost everyone in this audience from Nassau County and Suffolk County, because we're looking at this as a regional issue, not just in our backyard in Patchogue, but this is a regional challenge for us. We're thankful that the REDC just recently awarded us a grant. And the grant and the funding for that grant, again, is a partnership with John and Suffolk Community College, as well as the Huntington Opportunity Resource Center, as well as, of course, St. Joe's. And, we're also linking in Launchpad of Huntington and the Huntington Business Incubator. We're out there offering free workshops in a lot of these locations to try to educate or better educate people. And what we're finding is it enables us to even learn what the skill gaps are. So we're offering basic computer programs at the Huntington Business Incubator, and we're getting probably averaging 15 to 20 people that are coming in, taking these free workshops to give them the better skill sets in order to get the jobs. And now with this grant and the funding, we can now focus on, in this case, we're focusing on manufacturing and as well as the hospitality industry. We've reached out to some of our local businesses to engage them in helping us to develop programs. And one of the key things in my mind is what we do, as well as what Suffolk Community College has done and continues to do, is that we reach out to people that are industry leaders. What do you need? We're educators. And fortunately at St. Joe's, we have people who not only have the academic credentials, but we're practitioners. So we've all practiced in the industries that we're teaching, and many of us do that. And that puts a different bend on it because you can read a textbook. We can teach out of a text. We can teach out of research, but to actually apply this and engage and do things that textbook is not going to really cover in a situation, that's key. So what we've done is we've embedded, we require internships. So every single student must go out and apply those skill sets that they're learning in the classroom actually in real-world experiences. So we've developed partnerships with a number of hotels, restaurants, the CVB, in terms of tourism and the hospitality industry in itself. The other unique piece of our program, just as a point in fact where there are jobs, and I see more jobs coming online, is we have a concentration in healthcare hospitality. I think most of us know, and we've read in the paper, of how some of our local hospitals, and I think there were 5 of them cited most recently, maybe a few months ago, that didn't fare well in terms of their Press Ganey scores and didn't get reimbursed by Medicare and Medicaid. The local hospitals are losing millions of dollars. Part of the scores today, because the industry has changed, connects to consumer satisfaction levels. And what's actually happened is what is now Northwell 2 years ago has hired a former Ritz-Carlton GM to start to lead their program in terms of healthcare hospitality. So these are positions that, we offer a degree, but, these are positions, you have a lot of people that think of healthcare. A lot of young students come in and they're thinking doctor, physician. They're thinking, maybe a nurse or a very technical position, which we certainly offer programs on that level, but not everyone, as you mentioned, will really hit that mark. And not that this is less of a position by any stretch of the means. It's important, it's meaningful, there's worth to it, and it's needed. And here you don't have to have the sciences that maybe you just can't, grasp or wrap your hands around. But here we have now new positions. We just actually graduated one individual last year, as I said, we're brand new, one individual who concentrated in healthcare hospitality, interned. This student happened to intern at Brookhaven Memorial Hospital. And what had happened was she graduated and ended up working in a hotel. Brookhaven actually created a position. So she's now there working in healthcare hospitality to start to promote this. And there will be many, many positions. And they're like ambassadors. So that's something new that we need to be aware of. The other thing that we do is we offer continuing education. They're non-credit bearing courses. We have our certificates, which are credit bearing. We offer so many, a myriad of courses and opportunities, but we also offer continuing ed. And I think that's critical because then we can also focus on those skills gaps where people really are not ready for college or they're not ready for even an apprenticeship program, but we're giving them some of the skill sets and then we let them make that choice. All right? Some of them do continue and go on. Rosalie cited a statistic which actually came from the Eastern Suffolk BOCES, where many of the students that they have had in some of their new programs, the expectation maybe was not to go to college, but 80% of them are going to college. Right? I think a lot of this has to do with the experiential learning, tactile learners, which we know we have more tactile learners than book-savvy learners, and bringing in the new skill sets and the new technology that is necessary. We need to stay on the cutting edge as an academic institution. The only way we can do this is to partner with all of you and every single person in this room. And that, to me, is critical. So instead of working in silos, I think what's important here as a region is that we begin to collaborate. I know we're doing a much better job at that. Look at our professional societies, take a look at the industry leaders, and partner and collaborate. And that, to me, is going to be the answer to addressing a lot of our problems.